think Bloomington, think IU. Or Mellencamp.
Bloomington, Indiana has been my home since I lived in London for 2 years. And when I moved back, I moved here, and I knew I would never leave here because it just felt like home.
Or perhaps the city's 33rd mayor.
And as many people do, I fell in love with the Bloomington community and decided to stay.
Bloomington Mayor Kerry Thomson, what it was like growing up in the shadow of the Pentagon, how Habitat for Humanity brought her to Indiana, and her vision to lead Bloomington forward. She's my guest this week on the Business and Beyond podcast, presented by PNC. I'm pleased to be joined on the podcast this week by Bloomington Mayor Kerry Thomson. Mayor, thanks for joining me on the podcast.
Thanks for having me, Gary.
Yeah, you were sworn in as Bloomington's 33rd mayor, essentially just a little over 1 year ago, January of 2024. You could probably talk about this for a long time, but give me kind of the synopsis. How was that first year in office?
It has been an incredible year leading the city of Bloomington. We've gotten a lot done already and more on the horizon.
As you look at opportunities, challenges, opportunities facing the city, I know they are numerous. As you look at the opportunities there in Bloomington that you see, the potential there in Bloomington, give me a couple of the highlights.
I think we really have some incredible opportunities in front of us, especially in the area of economic development. We have, of course, the Trades District that was really designed and platted a number of years ago. And that, of course, is where the mill is. And that has been an extraordinarily successful co-working and startup space and has just attracted a great community of entrepreneurs and innovators. Just this past fall, we had the grand opening of the Forge. The Forge is Class A office space. We already have our first 2 tenants signed for that. And most recently, we were awarded the Campus and Community Collaboration Grant from the Lilly Endowment. That's all targeted at really building the bridge between Indiana University and our trades district so that we can partner incredibly well with, of course, IU's new 2030 plan, which really mobilizes commercialization that's coming out of that top tier Research One university. And so getting those new startups happening, mobilizing that research for commercialization, and that can happen really easily right there in the Trades District.
But to expand a little bit on that, you mentioned Indiana University, obviously a huge asset to have an R1 institution with the global reputation of IU right there in Bloomington's backyard. For folks who don't know, talk a little bit more about the Trades District, because that, as you suggest, is a really incredible development. I think it's 65 acres, something like that, essentially in downtown Bloomington. Really a focus on innovation and technology, entrepreneur startups. Give us the thumbnail description of the Trades District and how that is progressing.
Yes, it's a little more modestly sized than 65 acres, but it is a large plot of land that of course already has that anchor of the mill there. Then we have another startup that has successfully launched. That's Paragraph, and a couple of more that are moving in adjacent to the mill. The vision for the Trades District, of course, is a tech park, to have that vibrancy of a community where the synergies happen in real time. One of our entrepreneurs calls them creative collisions. Mm-hmm. So you're bumping into other entrepreneurs, you're ideating together in real time. And Bloomington has always been a place where these natural creative collisions happen because of the university. But now we're really fostering that in an entrepreneurial and startup space right in the Trades District. And the Trades District sits on the north end of our Beeline Trail. It's right in the heart of the community. We'll be building a nice hotel there with a great restaurant and rooftop bar. So there will be opportunity for people coming in for meetings and conventions as well. And those that are partnering with the university to have good space to work and to partner with these entrepreneurs. It also, for those who don't live close to Bloomington, we of course are about 20 miles away from Crane. And so while we're not a defense specific community, the partnerships that are happening between IU and Crane and some of our entrepreneurs have a lot of potential. And as we look at the landscape for economic development in the state of Indiana, we've always really excelled at manufacturing. We've been good at that and we've been good at farming, but we really lagged the country in innovation and entrepreneurship. And Bloomington's really the space and the place that can be the center for entrepreneurs in our state.
Yeah, I wanted. So I think essentially what you're saying is that innovation space, entrepreneurship is maybe the next great frontier for a community, a city, a region that's been built largely on manufacturing. That's changing, obviously, and has changed. But real opportunity, I sense, in that innovation space. You mentioned Crane, not very far away. And this talk of really a corridor from Crane to Bloomington on up to Indianapolis, maybe even beyond. Is that, as you look big picture, what do you see as opportunities there for Bloomington?
But I think the world's really our oyster. You can now get to the Indianapolis airport faster from Bloomington than you can from Fishers, Indiana. And so many people who wanted access to that airport and were attracted to places like Fishers, when they want to be in the heart of entrepreneurship, we know they're going to want to come to Bloomington. And so we are producing the housing to support this growing need. And the other thing is that we've made trades really shovel ready. So it has been city owned property. We have just transferred that over to the trades district. Former Mayor John Fernandez, who of course worked for the Economic Development Corporation, has a lot of great background in how to develop and attract great businesses. He's leading that up for us, and that's a separate entity from the city, and that can be a really nimble process. And for those who may have tried to develop in the trades district in the past, we have reduced the red tape and the friction, and we're ready to go. And so we're seeing a lot of interest in the trades district.
Are there elements? What's a missing link? What is needed in your view to really jumpstart or really set a fire in this vision? You mentioned the trades district and the relationship to Crane and all the different things that are going on, the IU relationship. Is there a missing element or a missing link that you think needs to be solved?
I think two things need to be solved. The first is Bloomington tends to have a reputation of being difficult to develop in. My administration is working very hard to change that reputation, let people know that we want to be great partners to build great things here in Bloomington. And so our housing, much like the rest of the country, we have had a housing shortage. We just approved a development that is 4,000 units on the southwest side of Bloomington. So that is getting started. We have an additional several hundred units that are coming on board at our old hospital site, which is in the center of Bloomington, of course. And it is about a half mile from the trades district. And so we're really looking to attract especially young professionals to that area where they can live, work, and play right downtown. So housing is one of those things. And then I think we really need to get the critical mass of entrepreneurs going. We've attracted several critical great leaders, but we need to get some more anchors. And of course, Bloomington has long been known for our gifts in the bio areas, both medical devices and biopharmaceuticals. And we really we're growing in other areas as well. There's a thriving music industry and several startups related to music here. That, of course, is a natural connection to the Jacobs School of Music. And then Luddy is turning out some incredible research. And so our tech is really going to thrive. And I think what we need the world to know really is that Bloomington's open for business. We have many assets that are really sitting at the ready and where we can make these synergies really thrive.
You mentioned housing as a big issue, and certainly I think you could go to almost any city or region in the state, and they would say the same thing. It's just something that is a real challenge. It sounds like you're beginning to solve that equation with that 4,000 unit development. What does it take to solve that housing issue?
Housing is incredibly complex. I spent the first 25 years of my professional life in housing, of course. And so you need to pull several levers at once. You need to have, of course, available land and a code that supports the kind of housing that you want built. But then you also need lenders to come to the table. And sometimes we need them to be more creative than they're used to being, because the comps for some of the types of housing that are being built are not going to be there. And so without the lending community at the table really being nimble and able to secure loans, we'll struggle. And of course, student housing has been very easy to lend for. Even since the housing crash, that's been the most secure housing in our nation. But we need a balance of things other than just student housing in Bloomington. And my administration's really supporting housing for those who want to live and work in Bloomington.
You mentioned earlier the CCC grant, and I can't remember necessarily what the acronym stands for, but basically the Lilly Endowment, which is such an incredible asset for our state, giving money to communities around the state, communities and universities to basically say, hey, go out there and do great things together in your communities. What does that mean? Because again, with the great asset of Indiana University, that right there, what can that partnership and that grant do in terms of advancing your hopes and dreams for the community?
It's already done a lot. As I touched on earlier, that transition of ownership in land to the Trades District happened specifically because of that grant. So the Trades District was able to buy out our redevelopment commission because of that grant. It also is funding some infrastructure and programs that otherwise would not exist. And I think one of the most important things, Gary, is that this builds a formal bridge with a vision for economic development done together, which of course, if we're turning out incredible brains at Indiana University, we'd like to retain those folks here, but we'd also like to make the most of that incredible research that's happening there. And in the past, the commercialization piece has not been a focus as much at Indiana University, but they're really equipped and ready, and there's a clear vision to do that. And we're a natural partner, right? 64% of all college graduates want to live in the community that they graduated in. And we want to use that great research at the university to turn out great solutions for our world.
Given that, the grant, the partnership with Indiana University, the Trades District, all the things we've just talked about, do you view this as a tipping point of sorts for Bloomington in terms of a new future with a bunch of things, potentially anyway, coming together at the same time?
I absolutely think that we are at a tipping point, and my goal as the mayor is to keep the incredible assets that we have in Bloomington and Bloomington's community feeling, the way that we take care of each other and welcome people, the incredible quality of place that we enjoy, and welcome more people here and welcome more business here, because we are a state that needs this innovation center. And we hate to say goodbye to all these graduates when they leave. We just had somebody join us on our Wednesday walk who moved back to Bloomington because she had gone to a larger city, 25 years old now. She said she was having a really hard time meeting people in a larger city and really wanted the quality of life and quality of place that Bloomington provided. And she has only been here since August and is really thriving and entrenched in our community.
Much more ahead with Bloomington Mayor Kerry Thomson. We'll talk about her background and how it fits rather nicely into her current role as mayor, and a lot more. That's when the Business and Beyond podcast continues. Stay with us.
At PNC Bank, we're committed to making a difference in the lives of our customers and communities by helping them move forward financially. As a Main Street bank, we try to do right by our customers with every encounter. Our local teams offer personalized financial advice to help guide you in making the best decision. We're proud to be part of your community. PNC Bank. See how we can make a difference for you at pnc.com. Copyright 2022, the PNC Financial Services Group, Inc., all rights reserved.
And welcome back to the Business and Beyond podcast presented by PNC. My guest this week, Kerry Thomson, the mayor, the 33rd mayor of Bloomington. And Mayor, you have been in the community for many years. You're not a native. You grew up in Virginia. Tell me a little bit about growing up in the shadow of the Pentagon, right?
I actually grew up playing hide and seek in the hallways of the Pentagon. My dad had to work on Saturdays. But I grew up in Northern Virginia and went to school with many of our legislators' children. So have some familiarity with Capitol Hill and the tunnels beneath the Capitol as well, going to work with other people's parents on the weekends. And that was a great upbringing. I actually, that steeled my conviction that I never wanted to be part of politics, ironically. And I went to school in Virginia, and that's where I started volunteering for Habitat for Humanity, which became a long-term career for me.
Randolph-Macon Women's College. And that's where you developed your love for Habitat, which you led in Bloomington, correct? In Monroe County. Tell me, because I think your background with so many of the things you're doing as mayor is really instructive and really is a nice connection to what you're doing now. So you spent a number of years with Habitat for Humanity and really grew that organization as well. Tell me a little bit about that.
Yes, so I started out working for the number one per capita habitat builder in the country in Lynchburg, Virginia. So after I graduated, I was working on their staff, and I went later to work for Habitat for Humanity International, and through a special projects team, really got to work with several other very successful affiliates. And I came to Bloomington really just to run a blitz build that they were doing, an accelerated build. I met Governor O'Bannon on that build, actually. So that was a number of years ago. That was in spring of 1998. And as many people do, I fell in love with the Bloomington community and decided to stay. So I was with Habitat here for 20 years as their CEO. And really, it was my great privilege to guide this affiliate and the incredible people associated with it from building a house or two, mostly all volunteer, to building up to 15 houses in a year. So we really saw a lot of community support, and of course, the housing picture and Habitat itself is quite complex because we have a mortgage portfolio and we're a social service organization. We became in Bloomington the top producing private home builder in the county for the last 9 years that I was there. So we really were developing land, and it gave me a great background for what we're doing here in the city now.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, your next opportunity, your next job, also, I think, very connected to what you're doing now. You led Indiana University Center for Rural Engagement for several years. And I think, to me, as we get around the state and do so many stories, I think that effort, that initiative, that whole push is so important because so many rural communities are struggling around the state of Indiana and need that assistance. Talk about your experience there, what you were able to do, and why that rural engagement piece is so important now in Indiana.
Yes, so I'm gonna start with why rural engagement is critical in this moment in Indiana. Most of our land is rural, and most of our population lives in metropolitan centers. But we really have experienced in our country, and certainly in Indiana, this gap between at least perceived resources between urban and rural. And the Center for Rural Engagement really they continue to work on an asset-based model where they partnered faculty and students on research and service projects that were all community initiated. So these are all ideas and concepts that come out of the communities to help build the assets and create thriving rural Indiana. It gave our students incredible access to high impact projects. We had one student from LA who interned in Huntingburg, Indiana for a summer and said he got to testify in front of city council and make recommendations that the city actually incorporated, which he never could have done in his home city. But really helping communities access and voice what assets they do have and build upon those, and leverage the cutting edge research again of Indiana University to deploy projects. It gave me, on a more of a personal note, a much broader picture of what it takes to have a thriving community, of how healthcare and nonprofits, the governmental sector, and notably leadership, both private and public leadership, those factors can really make or break a community.
Yeah, and that's my next question is going to be, what do you see as the, again, missing link? And to me, it does get back to leadership, or gets down to leadership in so many of these smaller rural communities that maybe at one time were thriving, but they've had their manufacturing or other business in the community has left. And in many cases, they feel helpless. They don't know what to do or where to go, or that vision, that leadership. As you, in that prior role, what do you see as the big issues facing rural Indiana?
One of the major issues is the departure of a healthcare system, and that has a lot to do with how we reimburse Medicaid and Medicare to local hospitals. But there are other factors as well. And it's hard to attract larger companies if you don't have an adequate healthcare system. We see that a lot of the challenges that we look at in rural America are actually mirrored in low income areas of metropolitan areas as well. And while the solutions aren't exactly the same, I think we can take some lessons. And what we've really seen is that the quality of place initiatives are some of the most valuable things that can happen in a community. And that does take leadership and vision to do those. But people want a place that's attractive to belong and attractive to live in. And for those communities that have taken on some of these quality of place initiatives and created community gathering spaces, event venues, et cetera, they really are thriving. And there's no specific recipe. And in fact, I think it's really important that every community articulates their unique niche so that they can attract people based on that. But again, I'll mention Huntingburg again. It's done an amazing job. Jasper is really thriving. Paoli has a lot going for it. And then I'm just mentioning communities in southern Indiana. But there's a lot happening in these rural spaces that people, I think, don't necessarily know about. And in this day and age of telecommuting, if you can get some broadband there, you can attract a population.
Yeah, you mentioned quality of life, quality of place projects. The READY program through the state of Indiana, which I think rightfully so, has gotten a lot of attention nationally, even for what it has done for communities and regions around the state. As you look at the importance of quality of life, quality of place projects in Bloomington, can you point to some you'd like to do? Or I think having Indiana University right there is a big advantage. And what do you see as the importance of those quality of place initiatives?
They're absolutely critical in today's world. You cannot retain people without them, and including businesses, you're not going to attract them. And we've centered a lot of our work on this existing quality of place piece that we have that has been in place now for 20 years, I think, the Beeline Trail. So the Trades District is right on the Beeline. So many of our assets are on the Beeline. We, of course, have a brand new, really significant park, Switchyard Park. We have a lot of events happening in Switchyard. It has become a real magnet for people. There's more pickleball there and throughout Bloomington. And so just finding places where people can connect and really enjoy the outdoors has been important. And I think our art scene you'd be hard to beat it in the state of Indiana. It's really second to none and growing.
So we wrap up, Mayor, as you look ahead to the rest of 2025 into 26. You've mentioned a few things, but what can we expect to see happening? What's going to be your some of your focus areas there in Bloomington in the year ahead?
I am very focused on two things, and they are the two ends of the spectrum. The economic development that we have been talking about, that is the big vision for Bloomington. And then on the other side of that spectrum, I've been doing a lot with working with our unhoused population. And we can't do one without the other, but we've been working in ways that really get people housed, and we have an incredible supported employment program here at the city, which has gotten people employed and then they get housed. And we've got to work on both ends of the spectrum because we need people thriving.
Bloomington Mayor Kerry Thomson. Mayor, it's been a real treat to catch up with you and hear a lot of the great things going on in Bloomington. Look forward to following the developments in the year and years ahead. Thanks for joining me.
Thanks, Gary.
And thank you for joining us on this episode of the Business and Beyond podcast, where a weekly conversation with achievers in business, sports, entertainment, and beyond. And you can download all of our episodes, more than 200, at InsideIndianaBusiness.com. You can get Indiana business news 24/7 while you're there as well. Thanks for joining us. I'm Gary Dick. We'll see you next time.